Thank you. This that I wrote here, I wrote it last November, just to kind of give you some context. You probably know when, once I get into it. As is likely true for many of you, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about President-elect Barack Obama's historic win this week and how it has profoundly affected me. I know I said I try not to talk about politics on this site, and I'm keeping to my word. This isn't about politics. It's about race. I became a fan of Barack Obama's about a year ago when I read his book, The Audacity of Hope. I, like many people, really didn't know that much about Barack Obama, and I purchased the book to find out a bit more. And while certainly I do find I agree with much of his politics, something else struck me as I read his words. He's just like me. Well, all right. He's not just like me. For one thing, he was born in the United States, and I wasn't. But he's a multiracial person who self-identifies as Black, just as I am. He spent significant years of his childhood living outside of the United States, just like I did. He has family members who don't look anything like him from a racial perspective, just as I do. He has an American law school education, so do I. He seems to have very little tolerance for gross generalizations based on race, religion, nationality, or sexual orientation, and in this aspect we might differ. I have no tolerance for such generalizations. Still, even as I go through life as a multiracial person in an interracial marriage with a biracial child, with very close friends and family members of many nationalities, races, creeds, cultures, religions, and sexual orientations, even as I live my life ensuring that I relate to people and judge them not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character, the truth is, it's not always easy living in a country where you look different. I moved with my family to Texas in the late 70s, early 80s, and I remember as a child being made fun of for being the only Black kid in class, especially because I sounded funny. And I was picked on not just by fellow students, but by teachers as well. In the 90s, often people didn't believe I was an engineer. You mean a draftsman, right? Was a common need for clarification. And in the early years of this century, there was the occasional person who didn't believe I was a lawyer. A lawyer or a paralegal was the inevitable response. And in fact, as recently as about 6 weeks ago, an executive at my former employer looked at me and said with very kind eyes, "Well, Karen, you're not really Black." A comment I'm sure he meant as a compliment, since I know he likes me, but while saying it in no way realizing how potentially insulting his statement was. For this reason, while I've only very rarely been the victim of outright racist hostility, I certainly believe I've been more commonly the subject of racial skepticism, let's say. Has this affected how I interact with people, whether they be friends, coworkers, or strangers? Not really, I don't think. I've certainly had, and I continue to have, very rewarding relationships with 99% of the people with whom I come in contact. But yes, I certainly do understand the sentiment behind the comment, if you're Black, a woman, gay, Arab, Muslim, foreign, Jewish, whatever, you have to work twice as hard to be considered half as good. I get that. So, now a multiracial, self-identified as a Black man, has experience living overseas, man with a funny name, is President of the United States. And what do I feel? Well, elation, yes. Mood.